Hey everyone, so we're all leaning on AI these days to make sense of the world, right? But what if the very AI that's summarizing complex science for you is, well, quietly misleading you? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a hidden bias in the tools you probably use every single day.
On the surface, it seems like a pretty simple question. But what if the tools we're putting all our trust in for accuracy are systematically getting it wrong in a way that's incredibly hard to even notice?
And look, let's be real, the promise here is huge. These large language models, they can take these super dense, jargon-filled research papers and just, poof, turn them into something anyone can get their head around. It's an amazing tool for learning, for science itself. But with all that power comes a hidden danger. And yeah, this danger actually has a name: generalization bias. Now, this isn't about the AI just making stuff up or hallucinating like we usually talk about. It's something way more subtle and, honestly, maybe even more dangerous. Okay, so here's the key thing to wrap your head around. The AI takes a very specific finding from one particular study and presents it like it's a universal truth. It just strips away all that careful, cautious language that scientists use and hands you a conclusion that sounds way more certain than it has any right to be. And this is what's so wild. Look how a tiny, tiny change in wording completely blows up the meaning. The original science says the surgery was associated with the result. See that? Past tense. It's tied directly to that one study. But the AI changes it to is associated, turning a single observation into a timeless, universal fact. That right there is generalization bias in action. So researchers wanted to know, just how big of a problem is this really? So they set up this massive study. They basically threw today's top AI models into a ring with thousands of real scientific papers to see if they could actually summarize them faithfully. And trust me, they did not mess around. They tested all the heavy hitters. We're talking different versions of GPT and Claude, LLaMA, even the up-and-comer DeepSeek. This was a serious stress test of the exact technology we're all using. And just get a load of the scale we're talking about here. Researchers dug into 4,900 AI summaries of papers from the absolute top journals. Think Nature, Science, The Lancet. This wasn't some small-time test. This gives the results some serious weight. All right, so after all that testing, what did they actually find? Well, the results weren't just interesting. They were genuinely surprising and, in some ways, yeah, pretty concerning. So, the first big bombshell. This isn't some rare bug or a one-off glitch. Nope. Generalization bias seems to be baked right into many of these popular AI models. They consistently, almost by default, make scientific findings sound bigger and more certain than they really are. And this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? When you put the AI summaries side by side with ones written by actual human experts, in this case for a top medical journal, the AIs were almost 5 times more likely to overgeneralize. That's not a small difference. That's a huge deal. But honestly, this next part is a thing that really blew my mind. You'd think, right, that the newest, shiniest, most powerful models would be better at this. But nope. The research found the exact opposite was often true. Newer models like ChatGPT 4.0 and LLaMA 3.3 were actually worse at avoiding this bias than some of the older ones. Okay, so this probably has you thinking, well, can't I just fix this myself? Just tweak my prompt. What if I explicitly tell the AI, hey, be accurate, or don't you dare introduce any inaccuracies? Surely that would solve the problem, right? You won't believe this, but it totally backfired. Prompting for accuracy actually made the problem worse. In fact, it made the AI twice as likely to overgeneralize. The researchers think it might be like an algorithmic version of that ironic rebounding thing from psychology. When someone tells you, don't think of a pink elephant. And of course, that's the first thing you think of. Yeah, it seems like telling an AI not to be inaccurate just makes it want to do that even more. All right, so the problem is clear. It's a big one, and the most obvious fix doesn't work. So, now what? What can we actually do about it? Well, the good news is the researchers didn't just leave us hanging. They gave us a whole toolkit with practical steps for anyone using AI with science. Let's break down these 5 key strategies. First, for you tech folks using an API, set the temperature setting to 0. It basically tells the AI, hey, no creative writing, just stick to the facts. Second, and we just saw why, stop asking it to be accurate. It just doesn't work. Third, you gotta choose your model wisely. The study found that the Claude family of models consistently did the best job. And these last two are really for the developers out there. They can use something called shadow prompting, it's like a secret instruction, to force the AI to use the past tense. And finally, they should be using this study's framework to test new models for this bias before they ship them out to all of us. And all of this really leaves us with one big, nagging question for the future. You see, the reason these newer AIs might be doing this is because they're being trained to be more helpful. And let's face it, a big, confident answer feels more helpful than a careful, kind of wishy-washy one. So the real question is, as we keep pushing for AIs that are easier and friendlier to use, are we accidentally making them, well, less precise, less truthful?